Hey guys, today we're gonna go over the tool palette a little bit more in depth. You should be using pretty much all of these tools here at some point. A lot of the tools now are hidden, so when you see the little, it's like a little arrow at the corner of a tool, that means that there's another tool hidden behind it. So we have the track selection forward tool. If I hold down option, or I guess it would be alt on PC, it turns into the all tracks backwards tool. So again, any tool that you see these little small arrows at the corner here, that means there's other tools there that you can see. Okay, so just make it a little bit bigger. Alright, so we'll go over our first one. When you first open up Premiere, this will be the one that defaultly is selected, which is the selection tool. So and it does just that, so you can select, whether you want to be, working in different panels, whether it's your project panel or you want to click on your timeline. If you want to click in a certain point in your timeline, you want to go, scrub through, different parts of the timeline, you can use your selection tool to do that. To select certain clips, just individual clips, you can use your selection tool. If you want to, lasso several of them without necessarily using the all tracks forward or all tracks backwards, you can lasso around it by just finding a black space that doesn't have anything in it, a track that doesn't have anything in it. Usually it's right above it, or it could be on the side of it, and then you just hold down the left mouse key, and then you can select as many as you want to that way. Okay, you can move things around. You can move clips to different tracks. If you want to move it down, maybe you want to move it over here, you can do that with the selection tool. The next one is our all tracks forward, or you can just hit the A button on your keyboard and it'll activate that tool. So as you can see, when you click on the all tracks forward, it turns into these two black arrows. Okay, and be aware of the direction that they're pointing, because that's going to indicate what direction is going to start selecting. Okay, so if I want to select, let's say I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna just so let's say I want to select all the tracks forward from this point on, from this clip here, then I would need to make sure that my two arrows are on that clip, because it's going to include everything that is from that clip and going forward on the timeline. Okay, so once I do that, then I can move these clips around on the timeline. This is helpful if you need to make some space for something else that you want to bring in. Maybe you have an animation or something that you want to bring in between, this clip here and this clip here. You can make space for it that way. It's an easy way to just kind of, move and shift things around without having to lasso around all the clips like we did with the select tool. Tool behind there is the all tracks backwards. So it does the same thing except from the other opposite direction. So instead of going forwards, it's going to be going backwards. So picking that same clip there, if I select here, it's going to select all the tracks going the opposite direction. And again, I can move these clips different places on the timeline. Okay, it's really just something where you can quickly move and adjust things without having to do too much. Our next tool is the ripple edit tool. So when you think about ripple, when you throw a rock in the river and it makes that ripple affects different parts of the actual body of water. So it just kind of goes on down. So the same thing here with this tool. the ripple edit tool, which is the hotkey for that is B, you will select which clip you want to start manipulating. So with these next tools, is all about expanding or reducing clips, okay, within the timeline right here, okay? So when I use this tool, okay, and I'm actually I'm gonna make this bigger so we can see it very well what's happening here, and I'm going to make this bigger so we can see what's happening. So with my ripple edit tool, we need to be very mindful of where the arrow is pointing there on the actual where it's pointing on the timeline. Its functionality is to allow you to adjust clips in between the transitions. So like how we have a clip here, right, and then we have a transition to a clip here. So the ripple edit tool allows you to adjust the clip, make it shorter or longer, and then you can affect the duration, or the I won't say the duration, but the where those clips that are next to it are placed. I'll explain that as I use it. So with a ripple edit tool, we need to make sure that the clip that we want to adjust, okay, is the clip that the arrow is pointed towards. Okay, so we're gonna adjust this clip here that we have selected. So I'm gonna make this clip a little bit shorter. Okay, so all I'm doing is just holding down the left mouse key, the left click, and I'm just dragging it shorter. So when I let go, notice how the clip that came next to it, okay, adjusted. Okay, so there wasn't a gap there. I made this clip shorter, but it didn't leave a gap there. It adjusted, it brought everything, you know, down here so that it's still connecting right next to that clip. Okay, if I was to make it longer, okay, look what happens. Again, it makes room and it makes that adjustment on the actual timeline. So all the clips are adjusted. So that's why we call it the ripple edit tool, because it's not just affecting just this clip here, but it's affecting, you know, the other clips that come after it. So when you're dealing with the ripple edit tool and you're dealing with clips that have audio linked with it, you'll need to make sure that you have this selected right here, the link selection, because if you don't, the ripple edit tool won't work the way you want it to. Our next tool is the rolling edit tool. Okay, so the rolling edit tool functions similar to the rolling edit or the ripple edit tool, but the effect is different. Okay, so dealing with this same clip here, okay, and I want to make it longer. So again, we're working on that transition point, that cut between the clip that's highlighted and the one that's after it. So with this one here, notice that there's two red there's two red arrows, okay? So generally when you see red, that means, you know, some things are about to get actually cut. Versus with yellow, okay, it's gonna be a little bit more forgiving, like it's gonna yield to certain things. So, you know, keep that in mind, you know, as you're editing and, you know, maybe confused about what a tool does. If it's the red, that means something, you know, it's either gonna, you know, cut into something or it's gonna stop something from happening. So if I do the same thing where I make this clip longer, okay, and again, I'm just holding down my left click and dragging it. Notice nothing on the timeline here adjusted. It just ate into that clip that was next to it, okay? So there is no adjustment like we saw with the ripple edit. The rolling edit tool just rolls right into the next clip. All right, our next tool is our razor tool. This tool is one of my favorites, because sometimes you need to, break up a clip, okay? So let's say, I'm gonna just move my playhead right here. I have this clip here. It's one whole clip, but I can, divide it up. If I use my razor tool, I can divide it up. So now if I need to, maybe I need to add an effect to this second half. I want to make this half, slow motion or something like that. I can use that razor, okay? And then I'll click on the clip that I want to go slower. I can, I'll go back in here, okay? And I'll go back in here, and then I can just do the slow motion just on that part. So I'll turn it down to 50% or something like that. All right, so for my slip tool, this tool, again, you'll use in the, you'll use the slip tool. Okay, so you use the slip tool again in between the transition points of clips. Okay, so if I go here, okay, there's a transition point between this clip and this clip. You notice that when you're in a point that is not functional, you have a little red X to it. Okay. When I start using this tool, you notice these 4 boxes come up. So the 2 small ones at the top is the last frame of the clip that comes before the clip that I'm manipulating. And then on the top left hand side, I have a small little box there, and that's indicating what the last frame is on the clip before the clip that I'm manipulating. The small box that's on the right is the first frame in the next clip that comes after the clip that I'm manipulating. And then the 2 below is the first and last frames of the clip that I'm actually manipulating. So there's a reference, so I can see at all times what is coming before, what is coming after. Okay, so when I start using my tool, I start dragging it around. You'll see only things that are changing are the ones at the actual bottom. Okay, why? Because those are the ones representing the clips representing the clip that I'm manipulating. So again, the one that's on the left at the bottom, the big ones, the one that's on the left is showing me my very first frame of that clip that I'm playing around with. And then the one on the right is showing me the very last frame of the one that I'm playing around with. So again, this is very helpful when you're trying to do edits that, have a specific pace. You want to see a specific scene at a specific time. This allows you to quickly kind of go in there and, scrub, around to find your in and out points that you want for that clip. Our next tool is our slide tool. Slide clips different places on the timeline, just arbitrarily, just moving them around. But in the actual placement that it was in. Our next tool is our pen tool. Alright, so for my pen tool, we can use it for various things, but probably the most practical use will be to animate your audio or your video on the actual timeline. So one of the things when you're doing audio, you may want to have it fade in or fade out, and you can do that using keyframes. So you can literally create these keyframes by clicking on the little white line here that really only becomes visible when you expand your actual tracks. So for example, let's bring it over so we can see here. There is this little scrub bar here on the side. So just like we have the scrub bar at the bottom, okay, to kind of move through our timeline, we also have one on the side here, one for your video, which is towards the top, and then one for your audio, which is towards the bottom. So if you grab these little white circles here and hold it down, and you can move down to, to reduce it, and then you'll move up to expand it here. Once you have expanded it, you'll be able to see these little white line here at the top of the clip. So I can literally add a keyframe and then, play around with that white line. I think right now it's that is the opacity. So I can animate that through time. So when you're doing these type of animations, the things you want to keep in mind, especially with audio, is you want to create an anchor point and then another one for the actual adjustment. So the anchor point is where it's actually gonna start, okay, and then the adjustment point is you're gonna adjust to the actual level that you want it to be at, okay. So again, it's just creating 2 points. So let's say right here I want the audio to, let's say start to increase. So I'll create my anchor point, then I'll create another point for my adjustment, and then I'll go to whatever level I want it to be at. Okay, so when I play through it,
congratulations on your win tonight. How do you feel after that?
okay, so that's your pen tool, and just the more practical ways that you'll be using it in our class. There's other effects, creating masks and different things like that. You can use the pen tool, but for now we're just going to use that for dealing with the video parameters and then the audio parameters. Our next tool is our type tool. Type tool is pretty self-explanatory. This is a new tool that they just put in the tool palette in the 2018 release. So it just allows you, instead of having to go to the title tool, you can literally just create your title right there on the video. So if I click here, it opens up a little red box there, and I can just start, typing whatever my text is. Okay. And if I click in there and then I go to the graphics workspace, once I go to the graphics workspace, then I can go to edit. But I make sure that my text is highlighted. And then once I go to the graphics here, then I can start playing around with, the fonts. I can start playing around with the color, the size, all of that stuff, where it actually goes, as far as the position of it. I can play around with the color of it. If I want to make it red, I'll hit fill. Then I can fill, and then I can choose whatever color I want the actual text to be there.